Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope that you had maybe a little bit of sleep last night. We're really excited to see your ideas a little bit later today. But I'm here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is David Vogt, and I work for the RBC on campus. We're really there to support all students, staff, and faculty with anything banking related, regardless of where you do your banking. We also help with professional growth, so things like today's workshop around looking for work, and we do some fun things throughout the year. So with that, we'll kind of dive right on in. I'll mention that while it is being streamed online, we are not recording the session, and I just would ask that maybe if participant names do show up, that you don't take pictures of those participant names. With that, Future Launch at Home is another great resource. I'm sure Marissa talked to you guys about this yesterday, but if you do find value in today's workshop, there are a lot of amazing resources at Future Launch at Home that's really going to help you grow your networks, get some experience and skills. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about why we're here today. So we're going to be diving into creating a resume, some of the ins and outs with that, how to look for a job, how to apply for jobs, interviewing for jobs, and finally starting a new job. So lots of different things and a little bit of housekeeping. I do love lots of participation. So whether you're here in person or you're joining us virtually, please put up your hands, participate. It's a really great way for all of us to be involved and hopefully a great way for you to get some energy this morning. So with that, we'll kind of go into an exercise called introducing yourself. So how many of you have been in a networking event and introduced yourself? We can just do like show of hands. So it looks like all of us in the room have. How about virtually? Do they have a hand option?
They don't have a hand option, but we had a couple of yeses.
Yeses, okay. So we're going to move into introducing yourself. So for those of us that have their hand up, that's wonderful. I would love for you guys to maybe introduce yourself to the group just by letting us know who you are, what your major is, and what you're hoping to get out of today's workshop. And obviously those virtually can put it into the chat and we'll hear from a couple of you. But we do have somebody here in person. So do you want to let us know who you are?
My name is Noah Stewart and I'm a first year comp sci major. And I'm just here to learn and take in as much information as I can to help benefit me for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Do we have some answers in the chat?
Everyone in chat's being pretty quiet right now, but I can introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Jacqueline. I'm old, so that means I've graduated. I studied digital media and then at Western, and then now I work at HG Packing, where I go to cool events and cool people like all of you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. And Shea. You also had your hand up. Do you want to maybe just let everyone know who you are?
Yeah, so
I can hear you, yeah.
okay, so I'm the president of the computer science course here at RBC. I'm majoring in computer science and I'm third year. And I'm minoring in data science.
Awesome.
And what I hope to get out of this is assistance in my co-op program because I would really like to discuss information on that process.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And co-op is amazing. So it is great that you're going to be a co-op student. Awesome. And before I kind of move on to our next section, did we have some answers from the chat?
Chat is being quiet about introductions.
Okay, that is all right. Introducing yourself is going to be a really pivotal thing to do as you look for work, whether it's networking or actually meeting somebody in person. So maybe for those of you who haven't answered, think about how you want to introduce yourself to an employer. We'll kind of move on in. So can anyone here tell me what a resume is?
It's like a personal display of your profile of what you have to offer, kind of.
Yeah, perfect. It's a personal display of your profile, so a list of all of your experiences and skills that you have and things that you can really offer to a company. So thank you for sharing. Who here has a resume? So, and in chat, you can just say yes.
A couple of yeses, and also people saying because the way of selling yourself. as
Way
well.
of selling yourself. Yes, great. And you can also do that with that introduction. So thank you, chat people. Sorry, I don't know any of your names. But we really want to talk a little bit about a resume. And this is really your first impression when it comes to an employer. They're going to spend time reading this, looking at your experiences, and sometimes they're going to form an opinion of you before they even meet you. So building resumes are really important, but what are some things that you think you may want to highlight in a resume?
Like your skills and assets.
Yeah. Skills and assets. Awesome. Thank you.
Past work experience.
Past work experience. Yes, I appreciate that from the back of the room.
We've had education in chat.
Education, yes. And that's one that I love to focus on. So with education, for those of you that are in school, it's important to put your graduation year so your employer knows when you're actually going to graduate. Is there anything else that maybe we should highlight in a resume?
They mentioned like name and contact details as well.
Yeah, that's kind of important. We want to know how to reach out to you. I think languages is a really good thing if you do speak multiple languages. So there's a lot of different things that we want to highlight in a resume. And we're going to look at a quick video. And sorry, can you remind me, do I need to mute anything?
Nope.
No, I
go ahead
just
and
play it. Okay.
We, Lena and Owen.
Perfect. So with that, before I kind of get to this slide, I want to maybe just ask you guys, did you learn anything new from that video? No? And it's okay if you didn't. Maybe there are things that you've already heard, which is great. But I'm just curious if anybody learned anything new.
Someone mentioned skill-based resumes.
Yeah.
People.
So how many, both in the room and maybe online, how many of us have a skill-based resume? Yeah. So it looks like there's 2 of us in the room.
Chat is no.
Chat. So, and that's all good. There's kind of your professional resume, which is that very traditional format where it's really highlighting specific work experiences and what you did within those work experiences. And then there's ones that are skill-based where you're actually highlighting skills and you're talking about all of your experiences under each skill. So for me, a lot of my skill resume is around like leadership, communication, and then I think I have sales. And so skill-based resumes could be a really good solution if you don't have a lot of work experience, because you're learning a lot of skills in school that you actually can highlight within your resume. So really great from that point. I also really love the accomplishments, especially given that we're doing BC Hack. So for some of you, this is going to be considered an accomplishment that you really want to highlight in your resume. It really showcases a lot of skills that you've learned because you've done BC Hacks, which is amazing. You're working in a team, you're doing problem solving. So there's lots of really great things you're learning from doing BC Hacks, which is amazing. But I do want to focus on the question on the screen and hear from you guys. So what types of skills do you think you should highlight in a resume?
I just had a question.
Oh,
about-
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so what's the difference between a skill-based resume and a regular resume?
Yeah, so I usually call them professional resumes. So a professional resume would have that introduction that we're kind of all used to, our name, our address, our phone number, maybe an objective, and then it would go straight into work experience where, let's say you worked at McDonald's, and you would have McDonald's from 2012 to 2020 as an example, and you would say, I directly helped customers utilizing my leadership skill, or I was a team player by interacting with multiple teams to get the job done, like something like that, where you're still highlighting skills in the resume. You're just doing it a little different, and you're doing it within sections of your work experience. Whereas a skill-based resume, instead of doing that, what you would do is highlight usually 3 or 4 skills and put into each of those skills all of your experiences that explains why you have skills in leadership or why you have skills in sales and etc. And then usually under work experience, you just say McDonald's 2012 to 2020, and then you would do maybe Home Depot 2020 to 2021. I'm just throwing out random examples, but you wouldn't have any bullet points under the work experience because you've kind of talked about that all under the skills themselves. Did that answer your question? Yeah, okay, perfect. Hopefully that helped all of you guys too. But yeah, with the question, what types of skills do you think you should highlight?
From chat, anything relating to a job you're applying for?
Yes, great answer, whoever it was. Anything related to the job you're applying for, awesome. It's really going to get you noticed. So thank you. Any other like specific skills that maybe you think you should highlight? Do you have?
Maybe like personal responsibility that you can like take control of whether you're doing good or you're doing bad. Yeah.
Personal responsibility. It's a really great skill to have, and really kind of focusing on all of the positive things that you have under that. Do we have
leadership?
Leadership, yes. Great skill to have. Lots of companies are really looking at leadership skills. Any other ones? Just out of curiosity.
Like, because we're in a hackathon, someone mentioned like technical skills.
Technical skills, very important. I know a lot of you are looking for tech-based jobs, so really important to highlight those things. I only know Python, but you would want to highlight Python, and I'm sure there's lots of others out there. One thing that you might not directly think of is creativity. So you're doing a hackathon, you're coming up with a really amazing idea and you're trying to solve it. And there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. And those are sought for skills that employers really love to see. Problem solving, again, coming from your hackathon. Really important to highlight those things. And the reason why I like to talk about leadership and creativity and problem solving or communication skills is those are skills that computers don't really have they can do it, but I wouldn't say they're super successful in those things. I would say us as humans are a little bit better when it comes to those types of skills. Now, the one other tip that we learned from that video that I want to talk about quickly was to have somebody proofread your resume. But I like to take it just one step further. That before you get someone to proofread, read your resume out loud. And the reason why I do that is internally, our voice will always read something the way our mind works. And on paper, it can sound really great in our head, like we've done this super fabulous job. But when you read it out loud, you're kind of reading it how somebody else is going to read it in their head. I do it with all of my professional emails just to make sure that I'm not missing and my sentence structure really makes sense. So that would be my first tip. And my second tip is just in reference to who should proofread your resume. So does anybody have any guesses as to who should proofread your resume?
Like family.
Family, great answer. Thank you. We really trust on our family a lot, and they can sometimes we're forgetting all of the great things we did, but I can guarantee your mom and dad definitely know all of the great things that you did that maybe you forgot to mention. So thank you. Do you have anyone from our virtual world?
Anyone in the same industry that you're applying to?
Yeah, that's a really great answer. So same industry, they're going to have a lot of insights on what employers might look for. So thank you, virtual person, for your answer. Now we're going to kind of dive on into an example of a resume. And I want to hear from you guys. So this, it does say spot the no-nos. So there are some things that are maybe not great with this resume. And I'd love to hear from you guys as to like what they might be. How about you, just while we're waiting for virtual people?
The username or the email starts with party animal.
Yep. And it's also not the correct email because it's they spell email wrong. So like we're not even going to be able to reach out to Mr. Party Animal here. So kind of important. How about virtual people?
The formatting, and they also mentioned like spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So let's say hypothetically, I really wanted to hire Jacob. His email address isn't quite right. I could probably figure it out, but some are a lot more complicated than others. But in addition to that, his phone number is also not right. There's 4 digits instead of 3 at the beginning. So kind of not great. We have objectives. So soon to be graduate seeking a part-time job to help me pay for extracurricular activities with lots of experience. So like, does that make a good impression as if you were someone in management and you were looking for somebody, like, do you want to hire somebody because they really are excited to work for your company, or hire somebody just so they can make money to pay for their extracurricular activities? And I'm not saying extracurricular activities aren't great. They should be sometimes things you might want to highlight. Yeah, go ahead.
It seems like too, they're kind of like picking their job with the I need the weekends to hang out with my friends instead of the employer picking the employee.
Exactly. And maybe you're not available on weekdays because you're a student. You can only work after night or on the weekend, but even just removing I need the weekends to hang out with friends could make a huge difference. That employer might also only be or available on weekdays. I'm sorry, it's the weekend. So maybe they're only looking to hire somebody for weekdays, and now they've made kind of a bad impression because of the brackets. It's okay. Not all of us are available all the time. Very creative, so that's kind of nice. Amazing with technology. I mean, that's not really represented in this, but that's okay. And then we have some high school, so they took pics of friends, edited in Photoshop, attended team huddles. So is there maybe a better way we could phrase the fact that you were maybe a photographer for a yearbook, and what kind of that impression was? And then there is some experience. So I think you all did a great job at spotting some of the no-nos, and we'll kind of highlight it here. So the work experience doesn't highlight skills or accomplishments, which is really important. I think it might also be really good if we think about the summary with technology. Well, this doesn't really show a whole lot about what they're doing with technology. So, and the basically everything under grocery store is really funny, but this is obviously a crazy example because I don't think we would normally see a resume quite like this, but it's important to think about who's reading your resume. How could we have done a better job with this? So we have the same person. Obviously, they're using a professional email this time. The objective is to obtain a customer service position where they can further develop my communication and interpersonal skills to provide a great customer experience. What I love about this objective is you're really focusing on the skills that you have, which is awesome. Summaries, so they're a university student who's reliable. Skill highlights, so collaboration, customer service, attention to detail. And then we have some more education and work experience. And this it's not like a great example, but it is an example of what a skill-focused resume may look like. Now, the final tip before we move into the next section, and I'm going to maybe pause for some Q&A around resumes in general, but the final tip that I like to mention is whether you're doing a skill-based resume or a professional resume, your first bullet point should always be the single most important thing under each topic, because some managers won't read your whole resume. They might only look at a single bullet point in each of them. So I really like to say, do your single most important bullet point to your least. I mean, all of them are important, but really focus on what's the one that's going to stand out and have that be the first bullet point. And I'm going to pause here for some questions. So does anyone in the room or virtually have questions?
The virtual question is the work experience. Let me just make it so you don't forget. Is like you have the title of where they worked, but it doesn't have the job title, and they've not really seen that before. Like on the professional ones, you've always seen the job title.
Oh yeah, you would still want to include your job title. I'm sorry. With this example, it's not great, but normally even in a skill-focused resume, like for instance on mine, right now I would have branch manager, RBC on campus from this year to this year. So yes, and thank you for that call out, virtual person. But yeah, you still want to say what you did, but maybe not. If you're doing a skill-based resume, you're not going to put bullet points. If you're doing a professional resume, you're doing bullet points under that role.
Then another question is, how do you decide like which skills to include? If you've got like multiple like jobs, you can have lots of different bullet points. Like, which are the most important ones?
Yeah, so I think those human skills that I was talking about are going to be really important, but I also would really highlight some of your technical skills, because I know a lot of you that are doing the BC Hackathon actually are hoping to get more of that technical based job. So I would still highlight some of your more technical skills and talk about projects that you've been involved. With a skill focused resume, you only want to highlight 4 skills. I'm going to throw this out there, but if we do have with our computer science kids that are on the online virtually or in person, those people skills are really important and makes you stand out from a crowd, because a lot of technical based resumes for computer science students are very much like Python, coding, building apps. And so to add some diversity, really highlight some of those people skills. You don't have to highlight all of them, but it's going to give you a more well-rounded approach. I hope that kind of answers that question and helps. Were there any others?
That's the 2 big ones so far.
Okay, no worries. Thanks again, virtual people and in person, for your Q&A, and there's going to be more time for questions. So if yours wasn't answered, no worries. So we're going to talk a little bit about social media. I know that Marissa yesterday talked about LinkedIn. So can I maybe just get a show of hands / yeses who attended yesterday's session with Marissa?
Couple yeses.
Couple yeses. Okay. Social media is really important. We all have it in some capacity. We might not, well, I shouldn't say we all have it. I have met some computer science kids that don't want social media, and that's okay. But we want to talk a little bit about why social media might be important, and some do's and don'ts with social media. So whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn from Marissa's session, or it's Instagram, Twitter, the one thing that's really important with social media is you're always thinking about kind of that positive approach, because I can tell you every single employer is going to Google your name when you apply for a job. And those that have a good social media presence or no social media presence are automatically going to move on to the next level. And the ones that don't, they're never going to see the light of day again. So with social media, one of the reasons why it could be important with the future of work is a lot more employers are looking at social media to make a positive brand presence. And when we think about you having your own followers or building different connections with employers, it really helps to kind of make that positive impression. You may be surprised or may not be surprised, but at the bank, a large part of my job is actually to be on social media to talk about things that we're doing and ways that we can help students, staff, and faculty. And that's going to be kind of the same with a lot of different industries. And there's a huge shift towards that, especially since COVID ended. The other thing with social media, and Marissa kind of mentioned this, but most of the jobs that you are getting in today's day and age are actually coming from online, whether it's LinkedIn, maybe it's a connection on Facebook. That's where majority of jobs are coming from. And in addition to that, it's also not so much about what you know, but who you know. So there also is a huge portion of jobs that aren't even being presented online for people to apply because they've already filled it through a contact of theirs. And for me as a manager, I actually have a pipeline of people that I watch throughout the years in school to see how well they're doing, what are some of the things they're experiencing, are they attending things like BC hackathons, and it helps me get a positive impression, so that way when there is a job posting, we might not post it, I might just reach out to some people in my pipeline. And tech companies are very similar to that. They're going to go to job fairs, they're going to remember who is there, they're going to go to hackathons. So it's really important that you have a positive social media presence and that you're building connections. And I'm trying to remember, we have a video, which is going to talk a little bit about applying for jobs. But before I move into that, I want to just see if anybody here has any questions about social media and how it kind of impacts the job market. I know it's slow because it takes time to type. How are you doing?
I think it's better to have like a private profile so that they like, not so that the employers doesn't see it, but like, because that's just who you are.
Yeah, so having a private profile is totally fine. I actually have a private profile for Facebook. You still want to be careful with what you're posting because even though it's private, it still is possible that you might be able to find it because online is kind of forever. I think too, it depends on the social media platform. Like LinkedIn, I don't even know if they have a private option. They kind of do, but not really. And LinkedIn would be one of those social media platforms that I don't know if I would recommend to be private, but like your Instagram, your Twitter feed, like those things, of course, you can do on a private setting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are working really hard at having a super great social media presence and you really strongly believe in some great things that you're posting about, I would also go, why would you want it to be private? Because it's kind of highlighting you in a different light.
Mhm.
Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
No questions in chat.
No questions. Okay, we're going to move into another video. Hopefully everyone's excited.
Now that
So it was a pretty quick video, and we're going to kind of dive into this slide, but did that surprise anybody? No? Who here has ever applied for a job in person at a business and just like walked in? I think that's kind of like a hit or miss. We have some hands up and some hands down. It kind of depends a little bit on what type of job you're looking for. Like, I don't know if you were to go into the main building of Microsoft, if they'd be like, oh, totally, like, thanks for your resume, we'll get you to meet an executive. Might not happen. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it does happen. But looking for a job in person can be a very different experience. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But anything else that you kind of liked from that video, whether it was new or something that you just, you're like, I believe in that. That makes sense to me.
Focusing on my interests about what I'm looking for in a position or particular company is helpful in narrowing down my job search.
Yeah, thanks. And I hope everyone online can also hear the answers. Okay. Interest is really important. And I think when you are looking for a job, whether it's in school or when you're done school, really having that company align with your own values is going to be really important. It's going to help your passion for that job shine a little bit more, but it's also going to show you did some research in that company to go, well, their values are important to me. And so that's kind of what I get a little bit from your answer there, Marissa. So thank you. But we'll kind of talk about finding a job in person. So we have dressed professionally. This could be a thing or could not be a thing. I think it depends on where you're applying for a job. Really, a good best practice is to see what everyone else is wearing at the job you're applying to, whether that's going in for an interview, applying for a job in person, or starting with the company. Look at what they're wearing. Some companies are relaxed. Like if you were to apply for a job at RBC on campus, as an example, we all wear sweaters and jeans and t-shirts. Like, we're a pretty relaxed environment. But if you were to go into a traditional bank, it's very much that suit, tie, nice dress shirt, that type of thing. And I know in the tech industry, there are a lot of companies that have that very relaxed feel. Like Facebook, I'm sure you could show up and be like, this is me, I'm from UBC, as you can see. But really think about what everyone else is wearing. Always ask to speak with the manager. Now, this might not always happen. It depends how busy the manager is, but if they can make time, they will. Or ask when a good time to speak to the manager might be, if it's not going to be in that particular moment. So you can always make a really great first impression by having a positive attitude, a firm handshake if they're still doing that. And this was developed pre-COVID. So I know there are some companies that maybe aren't doing the handshake anymore. Maybe they're just doing a fist bump or they're just not doing it at all. But if you are giving a handshake, you don't want it to be like super loosey-goosey, and you don't want it to be like, I'm going to break your hand. So you kind of want in between those two. Always have that smile, be excited, and bring a copy of your resume. Really important. In addition to that, sometimes when I've done an in-person, I mean, it's a little while ago, but when I did an in-person, sometimes I would bring I'd have my LinkedIn ready to go, and I'd be like, awesome, like I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, or this is who I am on LinkedIn. Like, do you want to put your name into my phone so we can follow each other? And it's really a great way to make a first impression. And be prepared for an on-the-spot interview. It could happen. And I've met quite a few students where it did happen. So we're kind of going to dive into the interview portion in just a little bit. The second thing that was really highlighted in that is to talk to your friends and family and let them know you are looking for a job. Additionally, you could let friends know you're looking for a job. Really great thing is all of us at BC Hacks, we all kind of know we all have a lot of things that are in common, and many of us that are doing BC Hacks might eventually work for a company that we would also really love to work for. And so it's important to build connections with your friends and with faculty members. Like maybe they can make a referral. They've seen all of the great things you've done at school. And let social media know that you're looking for a job. That's an option in LinkedIn. And maybe a recruiter is just going to reach out to you and be like, hey, I loved what I saw. Are you open to meeting with me? Outside of that, does anyone else have any other ideas of how we could find work utilizing our network?
Asking for referrals.
Asking for referrals. Yes, thank you, virtual person. Great way to help with finding some jobs. So thank you. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Again, from yesterday's workshop, you can learn the degree of your network and expand your network to people who know other people.
Yeah, thank you. So the degree of the network is really important to know when we think about utilizing it. And just in case no one went to yesterday's LinkedIn workshop, what we mean by that is there's a first degree, a second degree, and a third degree when it comes to networks with LinkedIn, but also kind of in life. So a first degree network might be like people you're studying with right now. Second degree might be companies that those students have friends or family at. And a third degree might be like unrelated to anybody in your network. That's kind of a quick run through of the different degrees. The second degree really makes a huge impact because there are people that indirectly know somebody in your network, but don't directly know you. And that's usually where we want to find our job, is in that second degree network, which I'm sure Marissa talked a little bit about yesterday. Any other ideas? No, all good. The last thing I just want to quickly touch on with networks, and I know Marissa talked about this yesterday, but I really just want to mention it again. It's really important to build a strong connection with somebody. So let's say you applied for that job in person, or maybe you went through an interview and you weren't successful. It's important to still connect with those managers, those leaders, to build a positive connection. Or maybe it's someone that you just added to your network. You need to kind of take that additional step to be like, hi, this is who I am. I noticed you worked for Microsoft and I love everything that you guys are doing. I would love to maybe meet for a virtual coffee. So make sure that you're building your network, but also reaching out to the people you're building your network with. So we're going to talk a little bit about when you should consider applying for a job. We touched on this a little bit with kind of the values of a company. So that's going to be really important when you think about getting a job, whether it's in school or outside of school. But does that job kind of directly align to some of the skills and experiences you already have? What is the nature of the job? So if we think back to kind of that bad resume example, are you doing things that are related to things that you have skills in? So in that bad resume, they talked a little bit about technical skills, but there weren't really any examples on that. So I don't know if the nature of the job around working in technology would really work. However, all of you are a part of BC Hacks, and I'm pretty sure you have some technical skills. So that would be kind of relevant to a job that you're applying for. This doesn't always come into play, and I'm going to give you one example. And so at the bank, and other companies might be similar, we diversify both with the people that we hire, but also the skill sets. So we might hire somebody who has a computer science degree, but maybe is now working in an office opening bank accounts and credit, because they have some different skill sets that can add some diversity to the company. I'm using the bank as an example because that's where I come from, but other companies are similar to that. For instance, a tech role, they might look at somebody who has a psychology degree because there's some psychology that goes into some tech-based apps or research and that type of thing. So really look at the types of skills you have. Does it align to that? But also, do you have some skills that maybe could help you stand out? Location and hours. So again, I think back to our bad resume where you're only available on weekdays. That is okay, but you only want to apply for jobs that say the hours are Monday to Friday. And you're not going to apply for a job that says like 7 days a week or extra hours. And location's really important. Some of us don't have vehicles, so really think about where it is that you're getting that job and if it's easy for you to commute. Customize your resume. So can anyone tell me what we might mean by customizing your resume? Do you have a thought?
Maybe if you don't have as much work experience, you don't put like the main focus on work experience. You kind of customize it to what like presents you the best.
Yeah, I like that answer. Customizing it to yourself personally, so that way you're giving yourself the best light. So thank you. And
use keywords from the job posting.
perfect. Yeah, thank you, virtual person. Using key things that are in the job posting and including that in your resume. For instance, and again, I'm sorry that this is like so banking related, but it's just the industry I work in. But one of the core values at RBC is helping communities thrive and prosper. So having volunteer experience and then maybe including the keywords helping a community thrive and prosper might really help to set myself up for success and make it a little bit different than those that are also applying for the role. And then finally, the last thing is a cover letter. So who here has a cover letter? Okay, couple of us. Do we have some yeses virtually?
Couple yeses.
Okay.
Couple of no's.
Couple notes, and that's all good. So I'll mention this is kind of I'm going to say a fine line. It's not really the right word for what I'm trying to think of how to describe this, but a lot of companies these days no longer require you to do a cover letter, and they might not even read it. So it's really important that you look to see if it says you may include a cover letter. I would just leave it out. And so any verbiage that's like, in addition, you could do this. I know some platforms will say you have to put in a cover letter. Obviously, those would be the places where you would want to include that. But a lot of companies just don't use cover letters anymore. So we'll kind of move on in. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, all good. We're going to move into interviewing, the fun topic of interviews. So how do we really get ready for an interview? I'm going to spend a bit of time just on this screen here, but a lot of employers are going to ask some different questions with interviews. Some of them could be situational questions. Some of them could be more general. Some could be about you. Maybe I'll ask this question. Who here has been in an interview before? Okay. And some yeses?
Some yeses.
Okay. Can any of you share one question that they asked you during that interview?
It's a long time ago. I can't
Long
remember.
time ago. No worries, all good. Do you want to share, Marissa?
Sure. Yes. No. One question I would get often. Maybe I'll cheat and give you two.
Okay.
First one I'll usually get is a variation of either tell us a little bit more about you, or tell us more about why you've applied to this position. So those are usually I find are one and the same because they really you talk about yourself, talk about the position. So that's usually the first kind of get-go question. But then an interview, more like job-specific questions, typically there will be at least one situational question. Tell me about a time, and this is going to be very specific if you work with clients or customers. Tell me about a time that there was a client or customer that was upset and how you handled it or what did you do. And I have many of those from my times in working in various places. Those were usually a question that I would get.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing, Marissa. And I think if you're not in the customer and service industry, it might look a little different. They might tell me about a time where you solved a problem, which is kind of around the same basis, but a little different if you're not from the customer service industry. So, yeah.
Yep. Question from question from chat, I guess. Tell me why you think you're a good fit for this job.
Yeah, great question. I ask all the time, why RBC, which is kind of similar to your question there. So, why you? What is it about you for this job? So, thank you, appreciate it. You go ahead, yeah.
So also about your schedule and flexibility.
Schedule and flexibility, yes, really important. We ask it all the time. Usually, we also follow that up with, do you drive or take the bus? Because we want to know how easy it is to commute. And for some tech jobs, you might be working out of a main office, but maybe you're working from home, or maybe you're moving from one office to another. So they want to know how mobile you are. Any others from our virtual people?
Yeah. We got one which says, I just lost it, 2 seconds.
No worries.
Yeah. How does your experience relate to this job?
Yeah. So, and that's a really great question, because some of us maybe don't have work experience, but we have other experiences, like being at BC Hacks. We're getting all those different experiences. So I really love that question. The situational ones are sometimes a little hard to prepare for. And they're probably my favorite thing to do as a leader when I'm interviewing. So I might say to somebody obviously we're in the customer service industry, and digital is kind of the way of the future of banking, but we have some clients that don't want to embrace digital. What are some things that you might want to do in order to increase digital usage? And sometimes they might give a really great answer, and sometimes not. With situational questions, I'll mention sometimes it's not actually about the question itself. It might be more about how it is that you're trying to solve the problem of the situation that you've been given. We like to kind of see how you think. And in the computer world, it might be your situational question might end up being okay, we're giving you Python and we want you to try and solve this equation. I think that's what it is. I don't know. I'm not a tech expert, but I'm just throwing that out. And it's not if you can actually solve the problem that they've been given, what they've given to you, but they want to see how you go about trying to solve the problem. So same thing in both situational kind of areas. Teamwork is going to be one of those things. Like, do you thrive better in a team environment or by yourself, and why? One of the other questions that is really good to be prepared for that will always come up is, can you share with me your biggest strength? And they'll either say your opportunity or your weakness. And it's kind of important to really think about why that is a strength and an opportunity or weakness. If your opportunity or weakness is really negative, maybe think about some other areas of opportunity. For instance, for me, I have an issue with saying no to people. I like to commit to everything. It's part of my people-pleasing nature. And that has landed me into sometimes overcommitting to things. So indirectly, I would say it's not a super negative thing because I'm always open to doing lots of different things. But directly, I've kind of answered their question. So really think about what that weakness might be. And the final thing I just want to quickly talk about on this screen is don't be afraid to think before you answer. It is okay to have silence. It shows that you're really giving lots of great thought to the question. So don't be afraid of that. I have lots of people that when I've done interviews that just try and fire out their answers as fast as possible. Really take a moment. And if you have to think longer than what you think should be acceptable, just say, oh, give me a moment. I just want to think about that. And I promise you, managers are going to love it. So don't be afraid to think and have some silence, okay? So during the interview, we're going to go over some amazing tips. The first one is believe in yourself. You've landed an interview, so they've loved either your first impression because you've met them in person, or they loved your resume, or they loved both, or they also loved your social media. They've loved lots of things about you. That's why you're going to an interview. So really believe in yourself and really go, well, I can do this job. I have the interview and it's going to be mine. Again, with that handshake thing, we kind of went over some tips with it. Really feel the room because things are very different in our COVID world. Show interest with your body language and posture. So you don't want to slope down into your chair. You don't want to be like a straight board. You want to have some, maybe not as much as me presenting today, but you want to have some body language. Of course, a smile goes a long way. When asked a question, listen first and then answer. Kind of gets back to what I said before. And then confirm the next steps of the interview. So ask them, when should I find out if I was successful for the job? Maybe ask them if you can follow up with them at a later date. Some of those other things is have maybe a question prepared. I usually like to ask questions like, why is it that you love doing your job or have been with, I'm going to use the bank again as an example, but why have you been with the bank for so long? And really, it really helps to get some insight from the company. Now, again, this workshop was developed pre-COVID, so I'm really leaning on the virtual and in-person people here today. But during the interview, what are some tips that maybe we should think about if we're meeting virtually for the interview?
Make sure your webcam isn't at an open angle.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, we don't want to look up a nose or down from your head. Like, yeah, great tip. I appreciate it. Any others?
Make sure your household knows that no one's
Yeah.
interrupting.
Great tip. Make sure your household knows so you don't have interrupting. I'm going to take it one step further and maybe don't have like a TV in the background or lots of loud noise. Really be aware of kind of your surroundings. Any other tips?
Good lighting.
Good lighting, yes, really, really important. I've had some interviews where it just looked like a shadow of a person. So you really want to make sure you have good lighting. I think those are kind of our big questions, but don't be afraid of body language with virtual interviews either. Again, sometimes it's not great to just be really stiff. So utilize some hand gestures every so often. And while you won't be handshaking, a smile again goes a long way. So now we've talked a little bit about some questions. This might be hard for some of you virtually, so I hope that maybe there is somebody in the room there with you. And I'm actually going to move to this one instead. What I would love to do, because we have some people in person, so you two can partner up and virtually maybe just find somebody, but take a few minutes. Don't worry about writing it down, but take a few minutes to answer the first question. What kind of experience do you have that will, oh, actually, I'm going to skip to the bottom one. Tell me about a time where you handled a difficult situation or had to work with someone difficult. Okay, I think all of us have been there. Hopefully you don't have a team member right now that's difficult to work with, but you're doing your best and that's going to be great. But just take a moment, talk to somebody, and we'll come back. I'm going to maybe give it a minute. Oh, there's the clock. Well, I'm a little over time. I'm sorry. Is that all right? Okay. We'll take about a minute and then I'll get something from you guys. So you guys. I'm gonna come back, sorry. Perfect. Oh, I have to wait 10 seconds.
Yes.
I'm good? Okay. Thanks so much. Normally, I like to take a moment for you guys to share examples, but it's kind of a bit hard with chat. So what I'm going to say is the questions on the screen are really great questions that can help prepare you for interviews. And my little tip is if you are going through an interview, utilize your resources, your friends, your family. You can come to us on campus. You could talk to other people from BC Hacks and practice an interview with them just to get used to answering some of these questions. Another little tip that I'm going to throw out there, and I don't know if Marissa shared this yesterday, but there's a really great website called fullyprepped.ca. And it's really everything around looking for work. So there's resume templates, there's areas for you to develop an elevator pitch, and there's also some sections in there that will help you with practicing these questions. Fully Prepped is free. There is kind of a paid option if you want to do that, but the free version of it is still amazing and has some great questions in there. So there's only a couple slides left, but what do you think we should do if we didn't get the job? Cry? Yeah.
Chat says ask for feedback.
Ask for feedback. That's a great answer. So thank you. Reach out to them. Why didn't you get the job? Was it because there were so many amazing people that applied, or was it something that you could work on? Now, you may not always get an answer from that employer, but there's no harm in asking. Okay. Were there any other things in chat just out of curiosity?
Use it as a learning experience.
Yeah, that's great too. Take it away and maybe do some reflections. What do you think went really well, and maybe some areas of opportunity? So thank you, virtual person. I'm sorry, I don't know names, but yeah. Okay, and then you've got the job, so that's amazing. So what do you think there's lots of things on here, but what are some things that maybe you think we should do if we've gotten the job? Outside of celebrating, which is the last rainbow point. Prepare, yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit more on preparing?
Give them a second to type.
Yeah, no worries, yeah.
As they're typing, I guess I can kind of give my opinion where it's like, make sure you're going in with the skills you need. Make sure, if you said you could do something in an interview, but you actually can do it.
Yeah, good tip.
That's pretty important.
Yes, very important.
Ask questions after getting acknowledgement around what's expected, dress code if that wasn't talked about, where can I hang my jacket, put my shoes if I say have my winter boots and have to change,
Yeah.
Where can I put my lunch, am I okay to leave the property to go for lunch, have things ready to set yourself up to have a really successful first day because it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, thanks. Marissa, you went through a lot of great tips in there. So I don't have to share as many tips, so thank you. I think it's important, at least with the first day. I know we have those that are like on time type of people, and that is great. There's no right or wrong, but I think for your very first day at the job, it's important to show up early. Doesn't mean you have to do that for the rest of your career, but I think it's good for the first day. I think having some pens and paper or like a notebook where you can write notes is going to be important. Some workplaces will have those and some won't. So it's a really great way to write some things down. If you didn't go over this in your interview or when you were actually hired by your manager, maybe ask them a little bit about what the training period looks like. And what you need to kind of do for the training period. But yes, you've gotten the job, so that's amazing. And celebrating is important. Outside of that, were there any other tips that we had in chat? No, okay, no worries. And that's kind of everything for today. So I want to thank all of you for spending the last hour and a bit with me. Sorry, I went over time. I wish you luck on your projects, and I know that you're getting some pretty amazing skills that are going to help you in the future by doing BC Hacks. So huge thank you. And we'll see you guys later. Oh, and get popcorn if you got hungry. We have some popcorn in the comments. Okay. Oh, is there one more thing? Oh,